All right, let's talk about something that pretty much affects all of us: borrowing money. This is a big one from the book Nudge. Now, when it comes to credit, we all like to think we're these super smart, rational decision makers, right? But the truth is, we might be a little more like, say, Homer Simpson than we want to believe.
I mean, you gotta love this exchange. It's funny for sure, but it also kind of stings because it's so true, right? Homer is all about the now. He hears crippling balloon payment, and he's just like, that's a problem for future Homer. And that right there, that's a perfect example of what the experts call present bias. We're just wired to care more about today and kind of push off the consequences for later.
And this is the whole point of this chapter, really. Homer's way of thinking isn't just some joke for a TV show. Nope, it's a perfect window into how our real, messy, human brains work, not the super rational econ brains you read about in textbooks. We're going to see this exact same pattern pop up in three massive areas: mortgages, student loans, and, yep, even credit cards.
So let's start with the big one, the biggest loan most people will ever take out in their lives: a mortgage. It used to be a pretty simple thing. But today, oh man, it's turned into this crazy maze of complicated choices. And if you take a wrong turn in this maze, it can cost you a lot. Just look at the difference here. Back in the day, it was pretty simple. You looked at one number, the APR, and you were pretty much set. Now, you're trying to figure out fixed rates, variable rates, these sneaky teaser rates that explode later, prepayment penalties. What even are points? It's gotten so out of hand that a study found even MBA students, people who are supposed to be experts at this stuff, couldn't reliably pick the best loan. If they can't do it, what chance do the rest of us have? So, what's the consequence of all this confusion? Well, an economist named Susan Woodward decided to dig into thousands and thousands of loans to see what was really going on. And what she found was pretty disturbing. All this complexity isn't just making things hard, it's actively creating a system where the most vulnerable people end up paying the most. After she crunched all the numbers controlling for all the things you'd expect, like risk, she found that African American borrowers were paying, on average, an extra $425 in fees for the same loan. Latino borrowers, they paid an extra $400. And this one is just mind-blowing. Borrowers in neighborhoods with lower levels of adult education paid an extra $1,160, more than $1,000 extra, just because the system is so complicated. So here's the big takeaway. The complexity itself is the problem. Think of it like a really thick fog. When you're in that fog, it's easy to get lost, right? Especially if you're not an expert navigator. And in that confusion, a mortgage broker, who seems like they're there to help you, can easily guide you down a path that's great for their commission, but terrible for your bank account. And this was a huge issue in the subprime market.
Okay, so that's mortgages. But this isn't a one-off problem. We see the exact same story: overwhelming complexity and really bad advice playing out in another huge market: student loans.
I mean, think about it. For most students today, graduating with debt is just normal. But the process to even get that money is a total nightmare. The main form, the FAFSA, has more than 100 questions. 100. And then you've got the private lenders just flooding high school kids with mailers and ads that are, well, they're kind of ridiculous. Here's a perfect example. One ad literally compared getting a $40,000 loan to ordering a pizza. Decision delivered within 15 minutes. Can you believe that? The whole point is to make this huge, life-altering financial decision feel like no big deal, just to get you to skip the complicated official forms and go with them instead. Okay, so you think, I'll just go to the financial aid office at the college, they'll help me. But it turns out even that could be a trap. Some pretty big investigations found that lenders were basically paying colleges with gifts, donations, you name it, to get on a special preferred lender list. Then the supposedly unbiased counselors in the financial aid office would push students toward those loans, and everybody made money, except the student. See the pattern here? Complexity opens the door for self-serving advice. All right, let's talk about the last one, and this is something that's probably in your wallet right now: credit cards. They're so convenient, right? Tap and go. But that convenience is a double-edged sword, because it hides some really clever traps that are designed to, you guessed it, nudge us into paying a lot more than we have to. I mean, just check out how much debt has skyrocketed. In less than 20 years, the average amount of credit card debt a family carries basically quadrupled. We're talking billions and billions of dollars in debt, with interest rates that are often 18, 20%, or even higher.
It's wild. And the psychology behind this is so interesting. There was this study where people were bidding on basketball tickets. The folks who were told they'd pay with a credit card were willing to pay twice as much as the people who were told they'd pay with cash. It's because swiping that plastic just doesn't feel like real money leaving your pocket. It's almost painless, which is what makes it so dangerous. And the statements themselves are designed to play tricks on your brain. You see that minimum payment amount? That's not them being helpful. It's a psychological trick called anchoring. It sets this really low bar in your mind, making you think that paying just a tiny little bit is okay. But all that does is guarantee you'll be paying them interest for a very, very long time. Okay, so we've got a problem. Mortgages, student loans, credit cards, they're all way too complicated, and that complexity leads to people getting taken advantage of. So what do? Well, the authors of Nudge have a really clever solution. It's not about banning choices, it's about fixing the system, and they call it RECAP. RECAP is actually an acronym. It stands for Record, Evaluate, and Compare Alternative Prices. And the idea behind it is brilliant in its simplicity. It would basically require all lenders to give you a complete summary of all the costs, every fee, every interest rate change, every penalty, in one simple, easy-to-read, standardized format. The whole goal is just total, radical transparency. Just picture this for a minute. You're getting a mortgage, but instead of a 50-page document full of legal jargon, you get this, a one-page summary. Here are your total upfront fees. Boom! Here's your interest rate now, and here's what it could jump to later. Here's your payment in year 1, and here's the absolute worst-case payment in year 5. Suddenly, you can actually compare different loans, like for real, apples to apples. And this one simple idea could completely change the game in all 3 of these areas. For mortgages, you'd suddenly have all these great websites where you could easily compare loans. For student loans, you could simplify that crazy FAFSA form, maybe even have it pull information right from your tax returns. And for credit cards, imagine getting a statement once a year that just spells it out. Hey, just so you know, you paid us over $2,000 in interest this year. Wow, talk about a wake-up call. And this is so important to understand about the whole nudge idea. This isn't about banning things like variable rate mortgages. For some people, those are the right choice. The goal is just to fix the system, what they call the choice architecture, so that everybody, not just the experts, can clearly see what they're getting into and make a smart decision for themselves. Yeah, this quote from the book just nails it, doesn't it? For all these loans, life is way more complicated than it needs to be. And because of that, people can get exploited. The complexity isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's a system that makes it incredibly easy to make a really, really expensive mistake. So it all comes down to this, really. A proposal like RECAP isn't trying to take away your freedom to choose. It's trying to make that freedom meaningful by making sure your choices are actually informed. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? In a world that's only getting more complex, what's more important? Having the absolute freedom to choose anything, even if it's a terrible choice, or having a system that's designed to help us all choose a little more